The rain had stopped 3 days ago, but the walls were still wet. Sergeant Crail noticed it during the second watch, when his glove came away slick from the stone. He wiped his hand on his greatcoat and stared down over the battlements into the dark plain beyond the city. Nothing moved. That was the problem. Behind him, boots scraped softly on stone. "Any change?" Trooper Venn asked. He was trying to sound casual. He failed. Crail didn't turn. "No." Venn leaned beside him, lasgun resting against the crenellation. The weapon hummed faintly, its power pack warm. Everything was always warm now, even at night. "They've gone quiet," Venn said. "They do that," Crail replied. "For this long?" Crail finally looked at him. Venn's eyes were ringing black with exhaustion, his cheeks sunken. He'd lost weight during the siege. They all had. Even the city itself seemed thinner, like something had been gnawing at it from the inside. "Don't start," Crail said. Venn nodded, chastened, and fell silent. Below them, the inner city smouldered. Not burning, smouldering. Fires that never quite went out, fed by collapsed hab blocks and the dead who hadn't been cleared. The air smelled wrong. Not just smoke, but copper and damp stone and something sweet that made the back of Crail's throat itch. From somewhere deeper along the wall, a voice called out, "Movement!" Crail snapped upright, heart spiking. He raised his magnoculars and scanned the plain. Nothing. "Where?" he barked. There was a pause. Too long. "False alarm," came the reply. Trooper Hull. "Sorry, Sarge." Crail lowered his lenses slowly. False alarms had become common, so had apologies. They were 6 months into the siege, by the Administratum's count. The outer walls had fallen early, too early, and the enemy had settled in beyond artillery range, content to starve the city out. Chaos forces, the briefing said. Traitor Guard, cultists, possibly worse. Crail had seen worse. What he hadn't seen was this kind of patience. On the 4th night without shelling, the Vox crackled. "All units, this is Bastion Command," the voice said. It was female. Calm. Too calm. "Enemy activity remains unchanged. Walls are holding. Morale is to be maintained." Crail frowned, then looked at him. "Unchanged from what?" Then muttered. Crail ignored him and pressed the transmit room. "Command, this is Wall Station Gamma 7. Request a clarification. No enemy contact for..." Static swallowed his words. The Vox clicked once, then went dead. Then swallowed. They didn't even finish the script. "Get some rest," Crail said. "You're back on watch in 4 hours. Then hesitated. "Sarge, permission to speak freely." Crail studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I was on burial detail yesterday," then said quietly. "Lower City." Crail said nothing. "There were fewer bodies than there should have been." That got his attention. "Cleared already?" Then shook his head. "No burn marks, no mass pits, just gone." A distant sound drifted across the wall, then, not loud, not sharp, like wind through pipes. Crail felt the hairs on his arms rise. "What does that have to do with the siege?" he asked. Ven's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't think they're outside the city anymore." That night, Crail dreamed of the walls breathing, stone rising and falling like a great chest, mortar cracking like dry lips. He woke with his hand on his lasgun and the taste of ash in his mouth. Somewhere close by, someone was talking. "I'm telling you, it answered me." Crail rolled over and sat up. Two figures crouched near the ammunition crates. Trooper Harl and someone else he couldn't see clearly. "Answered what?" the others whispered. "The prayer. I said the litany of endurance, the one for holding fast." Hal laughed softly. And something finished it." Silence. Crail stood. "Hal?" Both figures jumped. Hal turned pale. "Sarge, we didn't mean... What finished the prayer?" Crail asked. Hal opened his mouth. Then the wall shuddered. Not from impact, from within. Dust rained down. Somewhere, stone cracked like a knuckle being bent too far. The Vox screamed to life. "All units!" Bastion Command said, voice no longer calm, no longer rehearsed. "Do not..." The transmission cut off. From beyond the wall, or perhaps beneath it, came a sound like distant laughter, stretched thin and dragged across stone. Ven stared out into the darkness. "Sarge," he said, very quietly. "There's something standing where the gates used to be." Crail raised his magnoculars with shaking hands, and understood at last why the siege had gone silent. Crail lowered the magnoculars slowly. The thing at the gate did not move. It did not need to. It was tall in the wrong way, its silhouette broken by angles that suggested armor once worn by men. Once. The gate itself was gone, not shattered, not torn open, simply absent, as if it had never existed. Stone flowed into stone where it had been, smooth and seamless. "Do you see it?" Ven asked. "Yes," Crail said. "Is it?" "Yes." They stood in silence as the thing waited. No horns, no banners, no roaring demons clawing at reality. Just a figure, still as a memory, standing where the city used to end. Then it spoke. Not aloud. Inside. "You have held long enough." Crail staggered, one hand slamming into the wall. Around him, men cried out, some dropping to their knees, others clutching their heads as if struck. Ven gasped. "Sarge, did you..." "I heard it," Crail said. "Don't answer." Too late. Hal laughed. It was a small laugh, relieved, almost grateful. "I knew it," he said. "I knew it wasn't just me." Crail turned on him. "Hal, step away from the wall." Hal didn't move. "Why?" he asked. It's not angry. It's disappointed. The thing at the gate raised one hand. The walls groaned. Not collapsing. Relaxing. Stone softened. Mortar sighed as ancient stress released. The city had been holding itself rigid for months. Now it was being allowed to rest. Ven grabbed Krail's arm. We have to fall back. Inner bastion, now. Krail keyed the Vox. All units, fall back to... Static. Then laughter. Close. Too close. From behind them, Krail turned. Troopers were standing up along the wall. Not all. Just enough. Faces slack. Eyes wet with relief. A man Krail didn't recognize said, It says we don't have to be afraid anymore. Another nodded. It says the siege ended days ago. Hal spread his arms. Look around, Sarge. No shelling. No hunger. No orders. They abandoned us. Krail drew his sidearm. The click of its activation rune echoed loud as a gunshot. Step away, he said again. That's an order. Hal's smile faltered. You can't order us to keep suffering, he said. Not anymore. The thing at the gate took one step forward. The city screamed. Not with sound, with pressure. Krail felt his teeth ache. Stone cracked in spiderweb lines along the parapet. Somewhere far below, a building folded in on itself with a sound like a sigh. Then fired. The lasbolt vanished halfway to the target, swallowed by the air that folded inward like water down a drain. The thing tilted its head. You were loyal, it said, directly into Krail's thoughts. You held. You obeyed. You endured. Its attention tightened around him like a hand. This is why you will understand. The men along the wall began to walk forward. Not toward the enemy. Toward the drop. One by one, they stepped off the parapet. No screams. No resistance. Just acceptance. Krail tackled Ven backwards as Hal reached for him. They hit the stone hard. Hal's grip was strong, stronger than it should have been. Don't fight it, Hal pleaded, tears streaming. It remembers us. It knows our names. Krail smashed the butt of his pistol into Hal's temple. Hal collapsed, still smiling. The thing at the gate stopped moving. The pressure increased. Very well, it said. You may keep holding. The wall buckled. The city began to sink. Not collapse. Descend. Buildings sliding downward, stone flowing like wax as streets folded inward. The inner bastion groaned as the foundations softened, towers leaning like tired men. Ven was sobbing now. Sarge, please. Krail dragged him towards the stairwell. Behind them, the walls continued to empty. Below them, the city opened. They reached the inner bastion as outer districts vanished into themselves, swallowed by earth with slow inevitability. Vox towers bent and disappear, fires guttered out as if air itself seemed to drain away. Inside the bastion, officers shouted orders that no longer mattered. "There's nowhere left," someone screamed. The thing stepped through the space where the gate had been. Inside the city now. Inside them. Crail felt it settle behind his eyes, patient and vast. "You understand endurance," it whispered. "Now you will endure forever." The last Vox message crackled to life. "Walls. Holding," the voice said weakly. Crail put his pistol under his chin. The pressure tightened. His hand wouldn't move. Around him, the surviving guardsmen stood still, faces blank, eyes reflecting a city that no longer existed. The thing smiled with no mouth. The siege ended. The garrison did not. Centuries later, Imperial records would list the city as lost to tectonic failure. No chaos taint detected. No survivors found. Only a perfectly smooth basin of stone, deep and wide, like the earth had decided to swallow a breath and never let it go. They would build over it. They always did. And sometimes, on quiet nights, the walls would sweat.